Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome. This is basically part two of where we left off last weekend of the post conviction hearing for Brendan Dassey. Um, we we did leave off at page 145. So now we're on 146. Hi, Linda. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. How are you guys doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Good, good. Awesome.
I'm
Yeah,
like my picture.
yeah, I love it actually.
Bad cat, bad cat.
So, Linda's gonna be watching the chat
Yes,
because
I
I'm
am.
gonna be too busy reading, and yeah, it's the same rules as last time. So if anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question, feel free to interrupt me. Um, Linda and Donna and whoever else decides to jump on. If anybody else does, same thing. If you have something you'd want to point out or make a comment on, and or something that I may not be hitting, you know what I mean? So just interrupt. And yeah, I'm only going
Okay.
through things that I saw, that I highlighted, that I thought was something to point out. So if somebody else has anything, but yeah. Um, I hope everyone's doing okay out there. Dark Side, Mystic Jinx, Catnip, Jay, Alice, Marion. Excuse my voice. I just woke up like an hour ago, and the coffee's still hitting the veins. So I think I saw BB in the chat too earlier. But yeah.
I didn't know
So
why I still don't have a wrench, but
you still don't have. Hold on. Let me try this again.
I don't
Hold
get
on.
it. That
I
just
don't
kind of drives me.
understand it
It does.
either.
It's really not important, Becca, but it does kind of bother me if you can't tell. I keep talking about
No,
it.
well, it should because it's your channel too. So, and
Yeah.
like, I don't think I have a wrench either. So that's what I mean. Like, it's weird. Oh,
Hello,
there's
Sean.
Sean. Sean, I sent you the link if you do want to jump on. No pressure though.
Yeah. Yeah. No pressure. No pressure.
No
Oh,
pressure.
Alice
I
is
just,
booting up her laptop, so we'll get that Scottish "don't say how she feels" girl up here.
all right. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's, and like I was saying to Donna and Linda behind the scenes, this is all very, I don't consider this our channel. I consider this Brendan's channel. So, if any Brendan supporter wants to jump on with whatever we're doing and say something positive and supportive for Brendan or has news or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's open mic, you're more than welcome to do that.
Yeah. You don't have
There's
to put your
no
camera on. Just let your voice be heard, because the
yeah,
more
this
Brendan
is
gets to see us and or hear his supporters, the better it is, and the world, for the world to see other people too. They probably get sick of looking at us all the time.
yeah.
So
Yeah, this is 100% Brendan's channel, in my
yep,
opinion. And, Brendan's supporters are just as a part of this
yep,
experience and everything.
yep. Sure
I,
are.
I added you a monitor, or I
We'll
gave you a
see.
wrench, Linda.
Let me see. Nope, don't work. Don't worry about it. Go on.
What the?
Continue with what we are doing. It doesn't matter. We'll work that out with YouTube somehow.
Okay. That's just so ridiculous to me.
It is.
Anyway, so while we're waiting for because I know Mystic Jinx may come on. I know she said pressure Sean to jump on. It would
Yep.
be great if Jinx wants to join us too. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'll just go ahead and start while we're waiting to see if anyone else wants to jump on.
Okay.
So last week we left off right when they were going to take their lunch break, on page 145 at the very bottom. It says, we'll be back at 1:15. So we're back. It's 1:15. Yeah, so they basically remind him that you're still under oath. Oh, hold on. I need to plug my
Hi,
phone
Miss
in.
Chris. You can come on too. Love your purple hair.
Actually, let me post the hold on. Let me do one
Go
more
ahead and
thing.
post the link so if somebody wants to jump on, she can show off her purple hair. I love it.
Yeah. If anybody wants to jump on, here's the link.
Yeah, and look at me. I look like today. So, hey, you know. No way. It's too early. Okay.
No,
Well, it's too early to get pissed off because you'll be pissed off.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
It is early for me. I stayed up all night last night. Anyway, so back to
Back
this.
to the transcript.
Back to the transcript. So basically, let me recompose my thoughts here. Okay, so he's basically gonna show. He's basically showing all the extensive work that this person has that Meow has done that is essentially just been talking to the press. He's been doing nothing but talking to the press. So that's what we're basically going to be covering this. So he asks Robert DeVark asks him on March 17th, that's the day we're on, you tell the press there that, in quote, you gave 2 interviews a couple of days apart. One was apparently quite general from the complaint, the other much more extensive. I've been told the tape is approximately 4 hours in length. In any criminal case, the defendant would see if there's a reasonable opportunity to keep the statements he made out of evidence. If there wasn't a compliance with his constitutional rights, or if it was involuntary for some reason, right? And then he says, correct. And then he goes on to ask him, oh, sorry, my phone notified. I'm on the computer and the phone because my internet's being really awful. Anyway, okay, the fact that Mr. Dassey was given 2 statements wasn't out in the public yet, had it? And then he says that I'm not sure, I don't know. So that's something to keep in mind, is that they were only aware of the 1 statement in the public eye. So if anybody was saying anything about anything with the case, it was coming from Meow. But yeah, I'm not sure where I got it. It was pretty sure it's from the public, certainly not from Mr. Dassey. It wasn't from the public, and it certainly wasn't from Brendan, because why would Brendan think to, because he's a 16-year-old kid, you know? It didn't really say that he confessed twice. It said that there were 2 statements. That would certainly, I guess, explain the process. So somehow the press got a hold of, somehow the press found out through Meow that there were 2 confessions when that wasn't the case at all. So that's basically what they're trying to say. So then they move on to March 19th. Again, they're trying to show exactly, basically he's just talking to the press. There's a phone conference. You note a phone conference with Brendan Dassey. Was that Brendan, or B Dassey, was that Brendan or Barb? And he said it was most likely Barb. Okay, so at this point, you talked to Brendan once for about an hour, correct? And if I remember correctly, that was on the 17th. So again, Meow talked to Brendan for about an hour since the 7th, I believe. And now it's the 19th. So he still has not communicated much with his client. He's still communicating, quote unquote, through the press. But yeah, he just wants to show that still on the 19th, you haven't talked to Brendan except for more than an hour. You talked to his mom, maybe. He doesn't even remember.
Yeah, he hasn't even had time to even watch his interview. Okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing. March 20th. Now we're on March 20th. he asked him, do you remember talking to John Lee from the Post Crescent? And this is a statement, or the answer. Do you remember what you talked to him about? I wanted to make sure they got the facts straight. I understand that the law was what we were dealing with, so there was no misinformation to the public, which could cause difficulties in dealing with Brendan's family. Again, with Brendan's family, not so much the client, Brendan, it's Brendan's family, as well as I just think it's a professional obligation to at least help the public understand the process of how the criminal case worked. So again, he's communicating to Brendan's family through the press, not even to Brendan himself.
I have to say, it's important for the public to understand how the process is. I don't think he understands what the process is, because he hasn't even spent any time with his defendant or with Brendan, let alone to find any facts. He's more concerned about his face on the news, being the big man, instead of taking care of it the way a lawyer should, which is to not talk to the press, especially when you're dealing with a young child, which he was. I just don't get it. I think Meow has got a lot of nerve saying any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing that I think that they're trying to really nail in this first part of this, is that where were you trying to explain any of this to Brendan? And then two, if you are trying to explain it to Brendan's family, the reality of the situation that he felt was the reality of the situation, shouldn't you be on the phone with Barb and Pete?
Yeah.
The kids' parents? Shouldn't you be having meetings with the kids' parents? Shouldn't you be? And this is, I guess, in a perfect world, if I was a lawyer, I would want to set up a meeting with both Brendan, my client, and his parents there in the same room.
Like Miss Chris says, yeah, and not admit anything about his client when he hasn't even spoken with them. Exactly.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, hold on. Somebody's coming in. Oh, hold
Somebody. On. Oh, here we go.
Hey, Alice, what you to think? I'm gonna call you the what Alice. You think girl.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Alice. Hello, Alice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you have anything you'd like to say about what we were talking about just now?
I completely agree with you. There should have been somebody in that room with Brendan.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of his parents. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, if I was a lawyer, if I was in Meow's shoes, I hope I never am, as far as what kind of person he is. But like, if I ever was a lawyer and I needed to basically try to figure out what the heck is going on with this case, and if I needed to try to make anybody understand anything, my first priority would be Brendan and his family, and it would not be through the news. It would not be through the media. It would be one-on-one, me, my client, his parents, sitting in a room, talking about it until they got it right. If that meant sitting there for hours, then so be it.
I mean, what case have you ever heard of where a lawyer is out talking to the press and giving these kind of
continuously,
and not has even been there talking to the client, let alone if they are there with the client? Most lawyers don't want to talk to the press before they're going to trial. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Before, they really don't. They make their statements very short, and we're discussing it or something to brush them off a little bit, but they don't get into it like that. I just don't believe that.
Yeah. Now, so like I said, let's keep in mind, March 1st is when Brendan was arrested. This was also the day when he had the 4-hour coerced confession on tape. And then March 7th was when Meow was assigned to him, his second lawyer. He talked to him for 1 hour on March 17th. And now we're jumping to March 20th. He pointed out on March 20th you spent 0.4 hours. So they explain later in the transcript, because I'm kind of slow myself. So like, I was like 0.4, how much would that be? They're doing it in decibels of 10, so 0.4 would be like 40 minutes. So 0.4 hours is 40 minutes. So you spent 40 minutes on the phone with the DA's office and then a Milwaukee Journal reporter. Do you remember what the call to the DA's office was? And his answer is, I think it might have been regarding receiving discovery or being able to observe some of the discovery in the Calumet County DA's office. Now, this what I'm going to bring up blows my mind. So he went to, this is the discovery from the Calumet County, the evidence, quote unquote. Okay, I can. Oh, I'm sorry. I just caught Miss Chris's comment.
Okay.
Meow. I think of Pokemon. Okay, so like Meow.
Same as
That's
Manitowoc, corrupt law enforcement. You gotta catch them all.
Oh my gosh, that made my morning. Okay. Yeah, so has he gotten discovery yet? He answers that I'm not sure. So like, that's cool. Okay, so you hadn't, and then he like, or the tapes as far as you know. He hadn't seen the tapes yet. I don't even think he's gotten the tapes. Oh, 20 minutes. Sean says it's 20 minutes. Okay. Either way.
About 4 hours and 20 minutes, and he spent an hour with him, and the rest of the time all with the press, all these days. Yeah. Okay.
So he hasn't seen the evidence yet, quote unquote, the evidence. He hasn't seen the tapes. He still has not seen the tapes. It is March 20th. He has not. I don't know if it's because, and I'll give him some slack on this. Like, I'll seriously like give him some slack on this. It may be that phone call with the Calumet County DA's office that might have been him trying to collect the tapes. So we'll give him that. Maybe.
I wouldn't give him anything. He's got days before that.
No, you're giving him far too much credit. You're giving him far too much credit. The first thing to do as a friggin' lawyer is you get all the evidence that you can for the family, for in the boot, for any lawyers that came before you. Christ's sake, even Jerry Butin pulled him aside and said, his first lawyer, didn't he do this certain thing at the beginning? You need to mention something about it, and he's still never done it. So you're being a way too much credit.
That's true.
He should have done things for the start, and he didn't. The guy's a fucking numpty.
That's true. You're right. Yeah, you know what? Right. You're right. I take that back, Alice. I do not give him.
He deserves not a fucking cat scratch of credit. Let me tell you.
But yeah. So then we come down to here. He says there was a phone conference with Dean Strang. Do you remember what that was about? That's in his log of hours and stuff. And his answers, I think it was sort of an icebreaker sort of conference to tell us where they were at. I guess he was trying probably to figure out where my head was on the case. I think most of my response to him was that I was non-committal, that I'd have to see the discovery, talk it over with Brendan, etc. Right? Like he was going to do that. But that there was nothing intimate in the terms of anything dealing with his client in particular. And then he said, and then the question was, okay, certainly all of the signals you've been sending to the press had to do with plea agreements. You know, those messages he was sending to his client and his family through the media, talking about, you know, plea agreements. I'm going to skip all this stuff and go right down to this part where he said, but up to this point, you've referred to a number of times to the press about the possibility of a plea agreement. And he said, oh, sure. Now, remembering this is still on March 20th. And still up to this point, you've only talked to Brendan once. And during that conversation, Brendan had told you that his March 1st statement was not the truth, that he was innocent, and that he wanted to take the polygraph to prove that. And then they do objection, which we don't care what Fallon has to say at this point.
Turtle lips. We got names for them. Turtle lips.
But after the objections and all that, I believe they have to. So he continues to say, okay, then on 2 days later, March 22nd, your work on the case amounted to.
Oh, wow, a phone conversation.
Amounted to apparently a phone conference with Kay or Dateline. And then he said, correct. The next day on the 23rd, so now we're on the 23rd of March, he has this phone conversation with another Kay Singer. Okay, but the most important thing about this phone conversation that he brings up while he's talking to Dateline, it also notes that you've now begun reviewing the tapes. So this is the 23rd of March. He mentions to a news outlet, we're reviewing the tapes. And hey, now we have another guest.
There we go. Now the show's beginning. Here's a voice.
Now we've got it.
Good afternoon, you ratbags. How are you all?
Well, wonderful.
Pretty good.
Nice to see you.
Glad to hear you.
Hi,
all.
Sean.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Trouble.
So, Sean, did you have anything that you wanted to make a comment of while...
I want to fucking strangle that cat, right? This is my take on it. I believe that because we know the defence were in some kind of discussions or dialogue with the prosecution, I believe that the O'Kelly interview was a complete setup in preparation for the confession the following day. I think it was all contrived.
Yeah.
I think that they are right. I think that they knew that Kaczynski had his National Guard obligations or whatever that he had to stick with. Okay. And I think they set everything up so that it would all to take place away from any interference whatsoever. And this, in my view, is a further reflection of the isolation that they used to kind of keep Brendan away from everybody who could throw a fly in the ointment. The whole thing was a fucking setup from start to finish. And they used Kaczynski, they used O'Kelly, they used everything that they had at their disposal. It's fucking criminal what they've done. And yet everyone seems to think that the sun shines out of their fucking arses.
Right.
It's all right. And they give them prizes. They give them fucking medals for it.
Yes, they did.
What a bunch of cunts. Sorry about the language,
Sean,
but it is what it is.
Yeah,
you all know me well enough.
Yeah.
They're all absolute bastards. If someone was to do it to one of their children, they'd draw a firearm to protect their kids.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what makes their kids any different or what makes Brendan any less deserving than their children?
Yeah.
See,
that's kind of telling right there. And that's one of the things that I used to tweet at Governor Evers. I said, what if if you knew that your kid was being pulled by these two detectives into that room to be interrogated, would you be okay with that? Or would you fight tooth and nail to get them out of there? And I know the answer would be he would throw a fit.
Oh, he'd use his weight
and get his kid out of there.
Yeah,
he'd use his power to get out.
Because it's not rocket science. You absolutely law enforcement knows what law enforcement does.
Well, I've asked this question. I've asked this question once out in Discord already. It makes me wonder how Steve didn't end up with Kaczynski.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think Kaczynski was set up for Brendan. I think he was selected deliberately because of his incompetence. And I believe that he was used because they knew he was as meek as a mouse and would not stand up and fight. He would do what they say.
Yeah.
Paul Ward says the same thing.
He doesn't have to do as they say. All he has to do is not do his job.
Right.
And that would have been plenty. That's all they needed to be able to screw Brendan over the way they did. That's all they needed. And,
and by the way, I just want to...
Everyone buys into that bullshit, and they've swallowed it like it's some kind of a la carte French fucking cuisine. It's bullshit.
If you think about it, Sean, if you think about it, it was a win-win for all of them, because O'Kelly had then went on to say that he was involved in the Brendan Dassey case, and has then gone on to try and make himself out to be cell phone Mike and all the rest of it, and that he's some fantastic investigator.
Well,
and he isn't actually an investigator.
He's nothing.
So,
he's not an expert.
So all of them,
he is not
it was
an
a win-win.
expert in anything. And I think what he did was he's used that situation, and he's used the Teresa Holback case, and he's capitalised on that. He's tried to use that as if to say, I was instrumental in catching the killers of Teresa Holback. Aren't I a good guy? Come and bring me your problems, pay your fee, and I will give you answers. They might not be the answers you want, but I will give you answers. And that's all they were interested in. So they all filled a certain criteria. They would all do certain tasks, and it's all a setup over a few days. So he gets rejected in court, then he has the O'Kelly interview, and then he has the confession interview. What a load of bollocks. What an utter load of bollocks, right? Now, even a layman who's never had any interaction with the police whatsoever in their lives can see what an absolute fuck up of a setup this is.
That would be me.
They've set him up, they've set everyone, and they've not even been clever about it. They just don't care, because they know that outside of Wisconsin, no one's going to give a fuck.
Yeah.
And
if it wasn't been for making a murder, none of us would be even knowing about it.
Most of us wouldn't even know about it. Not
right.
at all.
Miss Chris says, "What are you saying, Sean? There was an agenda. They didn't care. What?
No
shit of giving a justice and disgusting justice for it should have been the goal at the time. Right?
I would never suggest that cops would act improperly."
Watch out for your screen, Sean. You don't want that nose to hit there.
I love it when you get passionate about it, because you just say what we all think.
I swear to God, I don't care. I'll call it. Look, I've been in prison enough times to know when a dirty cop when I see it. And Manitowoc are full of it.
Well,
it's like I was talking.
Right, like I was talking to Donna behind the scenes. I don't think all law enforcement is bad. I just think it took a couple bad apples or one bad apple to make everybody look bad. And this is really bad. This is bad.
And what's more is that they didn't even have to try too hard. They look bad naturally. They're skilled at looking bad because they are skilled at being bad.
Right.
That's why they look bad, because they couldn't do anything right if their fucking lives depended on it.
Right. Well, how could they get Brendan to have that, meeting with the, Wiegert and Fassy when he was going to be gone, and then still use that?
There you are.
Because they set that phone call up. They made sure he was going to call his mom and say, well, Mom, I might be lying. That was just that is something that had to be planned to be able to use that, as far as I'm concerned.
No, just that, Linda. With Brendan's language difficulty and everything like that, and picking things up, his thinking. I'm saying this is my opinion on how I think Brendan looked at that situation, because he can't understand the words and everything like that. He was going on the tone of their voice. You know what I mean? It would have been like with Barb. If Barb gave him into trouble for something, there would be a certain tone in her voice that he would know, oh, wait a minute, I've just pissed my ma off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So he would pick up on the tones. So when they're turning around and saying to him, no, Brendan, that's not right. Can you tell me? And then when he said something that they liked, they're like, oh, well, why did you not tell us that, Brendan? And then that's when the Wayne's like, oh, because I couldn't think yet. But how could you not think yet? Because I guessed like I do with my homework. Jesus fucking Christ. You know what I mean? You trying to tell me they didn't pick up on that? Aye, they fucking picked up on that, and they knew that they could manipulate that, Wayne. And it is fucking out of order.
Yes, they used his relationship with his mother, which is very close, and he doesn't want to disappoint his mother, against him.
Exactly. So when they're turning around saying to him, oh, we think it's better coming for you, Brendan, than coming for us, that Wayne's thinking, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble with my mum because I haven't told her this. So the first thing that Wayne's going to do when he goes back to the fucking cell is he's going to pick up that phone and he's going to say, Mum, I need to tell you something. And they knew that, and they knew that that was the only way, because he wasn't in a room with officers, so that it can't be coerced and everything like that, because he's telling it himself. Bullshit. He only fucking made that phone call because they turned around and they said to him, if you don't tell your relationship, mum, we are going to tell your mum.
That was a
That's
threat.
how that Wayne made that fucking phone call, because he was listening to the tone of their voice and everything like that. The way he would pick it up with his mum, if his mum was pissed off at him, he would pick up on the tone and be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm pissed off with my mum, I better go and say sorry, or whatever. You know what I mean? So that Wayne was going on the tone of their voice, and with them turning around and saying to him, oh, you better tell your mum before we tell your mum. That was the first thing that fucking Wayne done, and they held it against him, which is bang out of fucking order.
Well, here's something for everyone to think about. If they felt for a moment that Barbara would have had an ounce of influence over getting Brendan to talk, they would have had her in the interview, wouldn't they? So why are they using Barbara to threaten Brendan? Yeah? Well, if you want to tell my mum, go and get her, bring her here, and then we'll fucking talk, yeah? What a bunch of cunts.
Yeah.
Aye.
No, they knew Brendan's relationship with his mother was very close. It wasn't hard to figure out, and they used it. They used Brendan's disabilities against him, and the love for his mother and not wanting to disappoint his mother to sink him. And that's just so low.
And no telling Barb where he was or anything like that when he got fucking sent for that school and everything like that. Or when she was at the court and she was trying to find out where that Wayne was. No letting her into that room is because they knew with the situation with her and fucking Brendan that Wayne wouldn't say half the shit that he was saying if his fucking mother was sitting there.
That's right.
They've done the same thing with Brendan as they've done with Stephen. Do you remember Pagel saying that he didn't know where Stephen was? Now, why did lawyers? That was illegal.
Yes, it is.
They've prevented Stephen from accessing his legal counsel. Yeah, that is illegal. Mm-hmm. And
yes, it is. And they didn't do it. They did it in '85 too.
Yeah,
they did it in '85.
Pagel standing in front of the camera saying, well, I don't know where he is. Well, I do know where he is, but I'm not telling you. Well, what kind of bullshit is that? You know, his lawyer is entitled to have known where he was at all times. And yet his lawyer wasn't even considered. You know, they didn't want Stephen's lawyer anywhere near him. You know, it's like
Horatio McGilligan Crunch has something to say. You know who that is? That's Paul.
Yeah, it's Paul.
So, yeah. He says, hi, everybody. Does anyone else think that Sean Mulroney, a.k.a. Wizard, sounds just like the late, great Iron Dury? KC is going to hit MTSO with their own rhythm stick. I agree.
Can I just ask, did you have to ask the missus before you wrote that?
I don't know who Iron Dunny is or Dury, but must be
Hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a punk
I'm not good at
London.
the music, knowing that I don't remember that kind of stuff. So my brain's too full of other things.
Yeah, Ian Jury.
Sadly, yes.
Right, he said yes.
And there you have it. The final word from Paul. Have to ask the Mrs. First Productions. I come up with all the best names for these production companies, don't I?
Yep. Well, wait a minute. I named mine, I think.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yes, you did.
And that came out of nowhere. So anyway,
thanks, Paul.
Back to Becca. I'm sorry, Becca.
No, I was enjoying your guys' conversations. I thought it was.
I mean, we were talking about, up until, Mr. Crunch, who's from France.
Who's from France? Yes.
France.
Yes.
It's not France and Minnesota because, they made cereal here. So anyway.
So, just scrolling down the rest of the thing. Where was I? The 23rd, March 23rd, when he's talking to the Dateline. Yeah. I just want to bring up March 23rd. That's when this is the first time that you've reviewed of the tapes, and he says correct. Wow. So it's March 23rd.
Wow. And he got put on the case when?
March 7th.
Wow. That's a
so
great
March 23rd, he finally gets the tapes. Now, they kind of discuss what kind of format the tapes were in, and then they also discuss what interviews were on the tape. So he brings up February 27th interview, which he says, yeah, I believe that was only audio, which I believe he's correct. March 20. So that's
Box Hills. They didn't have that taped,
Yeah, I think they actually bring that up, maybe, or maybe not. I'm actually don't remember exactly, but
I would love to clear something up. Barb said that Brendan, he did watch the movie when he was in Calumet County, I guess, the juvenile center, and he read the book.
What movie? Kiss the Girls.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to say too. I remember I'm around the same age as Brendan. Right. I remember back then they were playing Kiss the Girls repeatedly on TV because that's how I watched it, and it was on TV. It was one of those movies that I specifically it wasn't HBO. It was on cable TV. It was on PBS or something like that. Yeah, it was edited for TV. I specifically remember it because I watched the first half of it and I didn't like it, so I didn't finish it.
You look better now, Sean.
Okay.
We can see you now, sweetie.
That's a compliment, considering I look.
I missed you, Gov. I missed your lovely face.
So yeah, what he could have very well have watched it on TV, on cable TV through the prison. Yes, absolutely. Is it TBS? I think that was the station that played a lot of those movies. There was a bunch of movies that had oh shoot, what's her name? She's got the famous mother singer, and then her sister's a singer, and Ashley Judd.
Oh,
right, because Ashley Judd was in that movie.
Yeah, Ashley Judd, Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Yep. So they were playing a lot of Morgan Freeman, Ashley Judd movies on the cable. That's it. Yeah. But that was definitely back then. I remember that specifically, and that was around 2005, 2006. So, for what it's worth. Anyway, my memory's weird. I can remember that, but not a lot of things. Anyway, back to this. He did specifically point out on March 24th, he got an email from Ken Kratz. So it's basically about discovery related things. And the only thing that I found was interested about this topic, and this made my head spin, this whole entire part of this. One of the things that was that Ken Kratz was letting Kinjensky know that he can come over and look at the evidence that they were doing for Stephen Avery's case. So there were So the question was, were there any forensic reports or anything like that? You recall seeing any of that? And he, of course, says, I don't, not at that point. He doesn't remember. Or they didn't have it at that point.
Very cold.
The fifth item, well, he mentions a box of discovery and invites you to come in. Did you do that? And he says, eventually I did, yes. It was a lot of photographs taken at the scene of the Avery compound. Photographs seized from Stephen Avery's possessions, including pictures of his girlfriend, various stages of dress, and some other things. So he asked him, did you make any copies? Did you make anything like that? And he said, no. Stuff that applied strictly to strictly to Stephen Avery's.
I'm sorry, I've got to slip away. My boy's just turned up, and he's, I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to get away.
Oh, cool.
I'll try and get back before you leave. If not, I'll catch you guys next time. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem, Sean. Thank you.
And I'll talk to you all later. Okay. Yep. All good. See you later, guys.
Bye. Love you, bud.
Bye now.
Bye. But yeah, anyway, yeah, so all the stuff that he reviewed so far is stuff that applies strictly to what, in his opinion, was strictly to what Stephen Avery's case was. Right. And then on the next page, he made a long statement, but on the next page it says, I didn't see, frankly, any use of it for us that I needed to have in my possession. It might something come up later, of course, we could get it. So, and one of the questions that he asked him was there photographs of the scene? And his answer was, there were some aerial photographs, all kinds of stuff like that. That certainly was important in establishing a crime took place, but I didn't really deal directly to Brendan's involvement in it. So, this is the part that makes my head spin. So you have a client who's supposedly involved in this crime with his uncle. His uncle has all this quote unquote evidence, photographs of the scene, blah, blah, blah. All these things that Brendan said happened in his confession that he is now proclaiming isn't true. You now have an opportunity to take copies of these photographs of this scene supposedly that your client said that happened and look at it and say, this stuff obviously didn't happen, but you don't do it.
He doesn't take anything that would.
And he openly admits, he openly admits that the crime scene photos or aerial photos
establish a crime scene.
Didn't really have anything to do with Brendan's involvement in it.
Yeah, right there, perfect. Right in his own statement.
I think what's blindingly obvious is that he's got no interest in the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he knows what's going to happen. He knows what he's got to do. This is just going through the motions.
Yeah. And you're right, Becca. He should have used that for his own, to his client's advantage. And he did not.
Yep. See, and here's the next part that really was just like, really? I didn't think this was true at all. But he asks him, did you expect the case was going to go to trial at this point? And he said, at this point, I wasn't sure. So the question is, okay, well, also at this point, Brendan was saying he was not guilty and he didn't do anything. Were you focused on trying to determine that? And his answer was, well, at this point, I hadn't reviewed his statement yet, including the tapes. So he's backtracking.
Yeah.
So he said, yes, I did start to review the tapes on the 24th, but now I'm saying I didn't really.
Yeah. Well, like Jazz.
So I guess at that point, I really wasn't focused on. I think I had gone, but he's stumbling. When I later went, I started going through the discovery. I worked partially on most critical elements pertaining to Brendan, which was the timeline of activity that occurred in the afternoon of the evening of October 31st, and accounted for where Brendan was at various times. And so then the question was, what about didn't look at anything related to physical evidence? So that's what he's saying. Like, how can you establish a timeline of anything that's supposedly happening with Brendan and what he's saying in the Chorus confession, but then you didn't take any discovery? You looked through it, but you didn't take any of it to actually go through it. But you're still trying to establish a timeline. You're not really talking to your client.
And yet you have a whole lot to say to the goddamn press.
Yep. So it's like, what exactly work were you doing, Meow?
Yeah. What work were you doing? You're working against Brendan.
He was busy talking to the press, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. I would like to have seen his invoice for those first sort of 20 days because he didn't do any work for Brendan.
Well, let me just point out something too. Now that you said that, how to say his name? I'm sorry, Robert DOC.
Yeah.
What he's reading from is Meow's invoice of time logged that he spent working. So this is what he was basically billing the county as his work done. So exactly it. He's being paid right now to talk to mostly just the press.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So that's his invoice. So that's why they're saying, okay, you spent 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. So because he's basically writing it all down saying, okay, I've done 20 minutes of work today. You're going to pay me for 20 minutes of work, which was talking to Dateline.
They would need to pay me to talk to Nancy Grace.
Nasty disgrace.
He was paid to talk to Nancy Grace. So that's something that's also pretty telling if you think about it. He is doing what the county wants him to do. He is being paid to basically paint Brendan to be this guilty kid with a guilty uncle.
Well, also Jasnaz says you have an eyewitness to the whole event, but yet you're not used as a witness. Yep. Another good point.
That is a good point. And that's the other thing is that I don't understand why they didn't. If Brendan's proclaiming your innocence and you're trying to defend him,
you should be using everything in that discovery that points away from Brendan because there was no DNA.
Well, that's exactly it. Why wasn't that a talking point saying like, wow, well, there was no DNA. There was no evidence that anything that Brendan said
he didn't defend him at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
JD saying that Meow guy was there for A, confession, closed case, B, fame, C, collect a check for very little work, and D, check Facebook to see how many likes you had.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Don't forget as well, all those television and media and all the stuff he did, he'd already tried Brendan.
Yes,
that case had already been done by that point. He'd been tried by media.
Aye. The case was done when Kratz went on and done that fucking press conference, period, for Brendan and Stephen.
Yeah. I agree. It was poison to the world.
Definitely, and he knew it, and especially he was saying, and if there's anyone who's under 15, they should leave the room. Fuck off, you pervert.
Let's just say, now that we dig into this and we see all of this, you can see the setup. How it
You can
goes.
see it, yeah. It's very plain and obvious.
Yes, it is.
It's black and white for everybody to see. So all these ones that come out and say this about the family or that about Brendan or why did they do this or why did they do that, go and fucking read it. It's there in black and white. We all were just a documentary. We've spent years researching, looking up documents, everything like that. I just want to put that out there because a lot of people say we were all duped by a documentary. No, we weren't. The fact is yes, we watched the documentary, we got curious, and we looked into it further and deeper. And the deeper you go, the worse it gets. So go and have a look for yourself. And Steve's just saying we were all duped by a documentary.
Amen, Alice. I'll tell you what, to me, that was just a crack in the window for me to get a little bit of air because I opened it fully when I started digging.
Yeah.
Aye,
agree.
Definitely.
So continuing on with this, on the next page, he asks him, what about Mr. He tries to say Dassey, but what about Brendan testifying at all? Had you discussed with him about that? And he says, I probably did. I think I probably did. And then for some reason, I skipped all that because I think he was just whatever. But I assumed at some point you're going to make us a plea offer. because the state does that in virtually any case of any type. So he's already assuming that there's just going to be a plea offer and then they're just going to opt for a plea offer. And I feel like that's part of the reason why he knew that the state was going to be doing this. He knew that the state was going to be offering that plea. He knew he was going to be taking the plea, or at least trying to get Brendan to take the plea. So why do any actual work?
Right. Why?
He knew that was what was going to be going on, I feel like.
Well, yeah, to this point, he hasn't done shit but talk to press, be on with Nasty Grace and on the Dateline, and hasn't even bothered to look at the fucking confession or use any of Stephen's discovery to show that his client is innocent.
No, he's done nothing.
It's a shit show.
He done absolutely fuck all for that way at all. He was more interested in the fucking press, and he was more interested in getting emails and things like that for Kratz. And I guarantee you, Kratz and that have said to him, oh, it's a done deal, mate. Just go in, put up a wee bit of a fight, and then we'll do the rest. But you'll still get paid for everything. And he's went, I nae bother, mate. And he's just fucking turned on Brendan.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I think it's disrespectful to Brendan's parents as well that they just assumed that Brendan was just going to. That they weren't solicitors. They didn't understand all of the process, so they've just railroaded everybody and just thought Brendan was going to lie down and just take a plea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really and that must have been many conversations between, you know, Sleazy Kratz and Kaczynski and O'Kelly. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to have listened to the deals they'd done.
Aye. It was during the documentary and all when Pa Avery was on the phone to Brendan, and he was kind of asking him, why did you say that, son, and everything like that. And he said, I don't know. It kind of wasn't true, sort of thing. So, and Pa Avery was, well, like, don't talk to them then, son. You know what I mean? Just give some grandpa advice. But Kratz and that twisted it round as that it was Pa trying to tell him, don't you fucking dare talk to the police or else. You know? And it was nothing like that at all. It was a grandpa giving his grandson the best advice he could fucking give him because he'd been through it with Stephen, and by saying, don't talk to them, don't tell them anything.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Exactly right.
Yep. Well, so on page 159, he asked him the question, well, up to this point, that would have happened at your interview on March 10th, right? You hadn't talked to him other than that. Is that fair? And he says, I think so. Then he asked him, did you view this as being good news, the invitation by the state to have Brendan testify against Stephen Avery? This was his answer that he gave. I was actually concerned because it was awful soon, and I wasn't sure that that's what Brendan wanted to do. I thought I was pretty sure he didn't want to, because he was pretty quiet, non-committal, and everything else about a lot of things. I guess I was concerned about it being so soon that there'd be some real problems with it, because I really hadn't seen Brendan that much. I hadn't reviewed all the discovery yet. I hadn't sent Brendan, I guess, what I ended up doing, reviewing most of the discovery, sending Brendan letters, kind of summarizing what was in it. So yeah, I was concerned this was happening pretty soon. Might not be prepared to do it. So isn't that a weird, like, he openly admits, like, this is all going really fast. I haven't done half the work that I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, I was concerned.
Well, of course, you're more concerned about the press.
I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Then he asks, and the final thing that Mr. Kratz does is invites you to get information from Brendan, right? Yes. So he invites him to basically try to get more info out of what happened through Brendan.
Why this was not turned around like total insufficient counsel and was not granted a new trial just based on this alone.
This is what drives me crazy about
mind.
this too. Yeah, it drives me crazy too.
I mean, it blows my mind. This is out there in the public domain, and Brendan's lawyers has probably put all this in his motions and everything like that, and for all the courts and even the fucking on bank to deny that when he's freedom is fucking ridiculous.
It floats me. I can't wrap my head around this because this is so much evidence saying he didn't have a lawyer. There was nobody there for him.
Yeah.
No.
And sadly, Bob and Pete thought that he was being protected by this man. That he got his best interest at heart all the time. They were letting their son be looked after by somebody they thought had got his best interest. Little did they know he was chucking him under the bus.
But then when Barb said, get a new lawyer, and Brendan went in front of him saying, I want to get a new lawyer. I think that was Judge
Fox too, wasn't it?
It was Fox.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I need a new lawyer. You know, he thinks I'm guilty. Well, boom. I've never heard of you not being able to get a different lawyer ever. And they said,
you should, Well, and see, this is the thing, is that they expected they expected the 16-year-old kid to speak like an adult in court in front of this adult judge and say an adult reason as to why, and he just couldn't do it. Other than the fact that, well, he doesn't. Yeah, and sit next to his lawyer while he's doing it. Where was this? That's the part of the reason why I'm very against charging children as adults, because you expect these kids to do adult situations and try to defend themselves, basically, and they can't. If he was trialed as a child, I would like to think that he would have had a child advocate with him that could have talked for him.
Right. I mean, how are you going to sit next to your own lawyer and tell him that you don't think he's any good? I mean, as a child. You know what I mean?
If you were, that's what I'm saying.
Because you don't
like if there was a child advocate, then the child advocate could have said, "Hey, look, my client feels this way, that way. He's not being defended properly. He needs a new." Rather than poor Brendan, just as a 16-year-old, just saying, "I just don't think this is going well. I just don't I got a gut feeling that he's not doing it."
You're taught not to.
He thinks he's guilty. That should have been.
He thinks I'm guilty.
Away. You know what I mean? Wayne understood that part. He understood that he thinks that I'm guilty, but yet he's supposed to be helping me. How is that good? You know what I mean? And the Wayne was brave enough. He had the balls enough to actually turn around and say, he thinks I'm guilty. The judge should have picked up on that right away. And
you're right. The judge should have.
And not just fucking dismissing it and saying, I don't believe you, because that's what he done.
Yeah. Well, and see, because that's what the judge was like. No lawyer would just openly try to throw his own client under the bus. That's ridiculous. You know, like, oh, come on.
Well, you know, Brendan, I'm sure, was raised with respect your elders. So, you know, so going against what an adult is saying is not good to him. He's taught not to do that.
Yeah.
So they used all of that.
Oh,
they used every bit of that innocent kid trying to be respectful. They used it against him and threw him in jail.
Exactly. And that takes me back to the point when we got in that turned around and or Liger and Aspender turned around and said to him about phoning his mum before they did. You know what I mean? Yeah. The Wayne's picking up on these kind of things and everything like that, and he picked up on fucking Kaczynski no being in his corner and wanted something done about it, but yet once again the people that are supposed to protect him let him fucking down.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're starting to get to an hour, and I just want to quickly wrap up with this last 2 pages, and then we can discuss it, and then.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, because basically he asks him about Ken Kratz's email, invites him to to get information from Brendan, and he says yes. And he asks him, you know, were there any signals that you were giving to Ken Kratz to do that? And he says no, not at that point. Then he points out the things that you're signaling to Brendan's family. In other words, you saying that you're not giving signals to Ken Kratz, but then you're in the news and media giving signals. You're giving secret subliminal messages to Brendan and his family. You know, why wouldn't Ken Kratz pick up on that too? but then he did say, and this is the part, like, again, he did point out not about finding physical evidence. So there were no, like he said, there's no physical evidence. And then he then jumped to, there's been some research warrants around the time of his arrest, searches of his house and other things. I didn't think there was any physical evidence that we'd be able to present if we wanted to. No physical evidence.
That's right. Bam.
To
red flag, red flag.
Yeah. And then, so then he's like, okay, so, but this certainly gave you a signal from what the state would have been looking for. And he says, yes, I mean, they're always hopeful to get more evidence. And they were hopeful to get it from Brendan. I guess, more statements, I guess. I don't know what else they could have tried to get. And he said, right. So I guess the state was still trying to search for more statements from Brendan, more admissions of guilt. Yeah. And then I'm going to leave everyone with this last thought, because now we're starting to get into the polygraph. Okay, up until this point, have you given any thought to Brendan's request to take a polygraph test? And he said, I had professionally a negative opinion about polygraphs. I've had truthful clients flunk them and untruthful clients pass them. So then there's another a hold up on the computer that they're typing. So then they have to go down here and then anyway, continue from where you start. Okay. My only question is whether or not you had given any thought to, or if given any thought to complying. Yeah, that's where they left off. Did you do anything with the respect to Brendan's request to take a polygraph test up to this point? And he says, I'm not sure when exact timing was, but I did know Brendan had asked me a second time before I did it. And then at that point, I requested that, went out, tried to make the arrangements. And then he said, and you hadn't seen him twice yet. And you've only seen him for about an hour. And he says, correct. March 25th, the next day, you listened to the tapes, right? You listened to the tapes and prepared notes. And then he said, correct. Sorry, I'm reading off of one thing instead of the other. And you listened to tapes 1 and 2 of March 1st, and then he says yes. And then there was an issue with one of the tapes. You couldn't get one of the tapes to work. I think was tape 3. He says that may have been the case. So you sent a letter to Brendan. Oops. And an email to Ken Kratz about that. Ken Kratz says he's going to fix it. Anyway, so basically there was an issue with the tape. Is
that when they were cutting parts out or what?
Yeah, right. But so yeah, basically I just wanted to leave everyone with that thought that Brendan had requested a polygraph test multiple times, but he's only seen his client for
1 hour.
1 hour still.
1 hour.
And then there was, and then, yeah, it is interesting that there was issues with tape 3. And I'm curious to know, that makes me wonder a lot of tape 3. Like, what was going on with tape 3? He doesn't really remember, apparently. And then he messages Ken Kratz.
Yeah.
About it.
And
then Ken. Yeah, see, on March 27th, it says right here, you get an email from Kratz regarding the tapes in a phone conference. You recall what the email was about. And he says, I think it was just about how he was going to take care of the problem. Take care of the problem with tape 3. And he said, correct. See, that's what I'm wondering.
The fact that Brendan is persistently telling them that he's fucking innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm curious about is that, okay, so the tapes that we saw that are on YouTube, those were the tapes that were submitted into evidence, correct?
I would imagine, yeah.
I think so.
So my question is that were those the tapes that the problem was quote unquote taken care of? Is there more to those tapes than what we really know?
Oh, aye, they're guaranteed. They only turned that camera on when they manipulated him into how, when they realised that he was going to say what he wanted with the different tones and that they could use. That camera wasn't rolling for Brendan first went into that room like it says it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing is like, and this is me based off of my really awful memory. I remember maybe this had something to do with these tapes, but I remember in the past somebody made a comment how it seemed kind of jumpy towards the end and it didn't seem complete or it seemed edited. And I remember somebody else saying, no, that's exactly the way we got it from evidence.
Yeah, because
before uploading it. So my question is, was something done to those tapes that we just weren't really aware of until?
Probably. I would assume yes.
So then where are the real, that's what I want to know is where's the real tapes before they were quote unquote gone. Taken care of?
Yeah, that's gone with the lost evidence.
Jazz put up the interrogations on the live chat, so if anybody wants to check it out, go ahead.
Thank you, Jazz Naz.
Yeah. You know, they've been manipulated. I'm sure, and I'm sure there's a way they can do it. And if they were messed up, you know, I mean, everything
that's
here is
something
dirty.
that also I want to also kind of, sorry to interrupt you, but I just kind of want to point out while I'm thinking of in my head, and not saying, but that's one of the things that I've wondered why they didn't actually try to pursue more of in all of this. Like they bring it up. Mm-hmm. The significance of tape 3 on the March 1st interrogation, like he brings it up and they talk about it, but like they kind of just leave it at that, and then that's the last we hear about it.
Well, because you know why. I mean, it's blatantly obvious that that would have pointed probably to more towards his innocence, which everything points to his innocence. I'm sorry.
No, it does. Yeah. It does.
You know, the more I hear this and read and hear about it, it just, I mean, I cannot even wrap my dumbest brain cell around any of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It makes absolutely no sense why anybody, especially a judge, could look at this and say that he doesn't need a new trial when this was going on.
I know. I mean that dumbfounds me. It really does.
Yeah.
That your system, even gone through to the highest courts, all this would have been in motions and everything, and they still denied that when his freedom with no evidence, no nothing apart from a coerced confession. That confession shouldn't have made it anywhere near a court. Never mind anything else.
You're right. If it, like I said, go ahead, Donna. I'm sorry.
I think it speaks volumes that a judge listened to all of this and denied, but then Judge Duffin only read the paperwork put before him and overturned the conviction.
Right. Yeah. Because Judge Duffin is for truth. He's for truth. That's why he is a real a justice-seeking judge.
Yeah. I like Judge Duffin. He seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he seems like he's one of the few judges involved in this. There's a few judges that were on the 7th Circuit that also seem to really
makes my skin crawl.
Understand exactly what we're looking at here.
3 of them or something like that, wasn't it? 3 or 4 of them that came in back in Brendan's favour. And one of them did say that what she was reading and everything like that was disgusting. And I think she even tried to argue with one of the other ones that tried to say that his confession wasn't coerced, and she questioned him on it. But what about this bit? And what about that bit? You honestly think that wasn't coerced?
Yeah. Well, because there's nothing, physically you can see, like him being coerced or bullied or anything. And they were giving him reassurance, according to what some have said, by, we're there for you, Brendan. We will not, that makes them look like they were, just doing their job and they were okay for him. but yet it's okay to lie to them and tell them we know everything. We just need to hear it from you. I know it's all a bunch of bull hockey.
I don't know if anybody follows Linda's other channel, Not My Verbiage. She's made excellent talking points about things that has to do with the justice system and videos and stuff. And one of the things that I very, very much agree with is that police and investigators should be illegal to lie to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking for the
be
truth,
straight down.
but yet you lie. You lie and to get the truth makes no sense.
And that's what they were doing to Brendan. They were flat out lying to this poor kid.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. You'll go home. You'll be safe. Yep. Everything will be fine. Just tell us what you saw. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that our police aren't allowed to lie. I mean, they could maybe say, "Oh, but your mate said this." You know what I mean? But if we're constantly saying, that's a load of shite, you're talking at your arse, you know what I mean? Then they take that and then they try and do something else, but they can't sit there and say things like, "Oh, we know what you did." How the fuck do you know what you did when I know I didn't do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're not allowed to lie like that. I mean, I think they can tell like wee white lies, but no big lies like that, or turn around and say, "We're not here as police officers right now, Brendan. We're here as fathers, but we're questioning you like fucking police, not like a father." You know what I mean?
I can't. Oh, that floors me. Oh, I'm here as a father. You can look at me like that. It's entrapment. It's against your rights to be entrapped by the police, yet they're doing it. And legally getting away with it.
Yeah. It's sickening, honestly. The whole thing, especially knowing that this happened to a child with limited capabilities and understanding. Like, it's just absolutely disgusting.
Language is his problem. He doesn't understand too many words, and they gave him too many words.
Yep.
But they knew that. But they knew that, didn't they?
Yes.
I feel like the first two interviews that they had with him, one in the car and one at school, I think that was them feeling him out and getting an understanding of how he talks and how he works. And then this was the interview that they were leading up to.
I think when they were in Crevitz and that cop said, he's seen how quickly he could get Brendan to change by saying a couple things.
Exactly.
That's when he said, "Oh, wait a minute. Here, you guys go to this kid right here, because he will be easily turned." Because his brother didn't change anything, he said, and Brendan kind of said, "Well, I really wasn't, paying attention, And that right there at that point, that's when I think they knew they had somebody.
Oh, I agree with you 1,000%, Linda. 1,000%. That's exactly what that was. They were testing him out to see how malleable he would be. And when they got that, they went straight back to fucking Liger and Aspender and that and said, "Here, go for this, Jan." He, you know what I mean? He's no fully there with language or something like that. And they went to the school and he was in a special education class. So for them to come out and say that they didn't know that he had a disability,
that's ridiculous.
Is bullshit.
At least they'd done their homework. They knew exactly who they were dealing with. There was no confusion.
Yep.
And they probably thought at that stage that Stephen's case was weak, and they just must have had a party when they found out about Brendan.
Oh yeah, I agree, Donna. 100%. I really do.
They must have thought all their Christmases had come at once. They really must.
Mm-hmm. Infuriating. Well,
I think I'm going to leave here.
O'Brien just said, "I never knew they said that to Brendan about being there as fathers." What does that even mean? Yes, they did. They said that in one of the interviews, and I think it was either just before or just after Liger was touching his leg and everything like that, saying, "Oh, come on, pal, it's all right." They mentioned about, "We're not here as police officers right now, we're here as fathers."
Alice, I'll correct you. It was the first interview at school.
Was it the first interview at school?
Yeah.
I think they said it too, though, during the March 1st one. I think they did say
too.
it.
Yes, they did. They were letting him think that he was safe to say these things. It was okay for him. We understand. We have children. You know, the whole thing, that everything that they did throughout the time stuck in Brendan's head. You know, he's a kid who's raised with respect, and they used that against him.
Yep, he did. And yes, JD, they did touch his leg.
That was the moment. Yeah.
In one of the interviews. And I'm positive it's the one that you can get on YouTube. If not,
it's the March 1st one.
And excuse me, but in your country and in yours, I believe, Donna, you cannot even do that, can you? I mean, you can't talk to a kid, but you can't touch them either.
No.
And let me tell you, as a woman, like, that made my skin crawl.
Me too.
When he touched his leg like that, my God, I would have smacked somebody. If a grown man touched me like that as a 16-year-old, that would have been.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh.
With that whole situation and all, Linda and Becca, is the fact that Brendan would not, and I mean would not, have been in that room with the 2 officers on his own.
No.
It just wouldn't happen. It maybe happened years ago, but it would not happen now.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
we need to adopt a lot of our other countries' laws and their protocols, because I really respect your countries for doing what you do for the children and just for justice, because you really are seeking justice. You're not just trying to get convictions to get promotions. See, and I admire that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up, ladies. I do want to give
polygraph.
I was just gonna say on the 20th would have been when we had our next one, but I'm actually gonna be out of town.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be in a place without internet, so I won't be able to do this. But yes, on the 27th is when we're going to I guess re-adjourn. And,
that's a good way to put
right
it.
now, I'm on page 165. And next episode we should be getting into a little bit more as terms with when he first met O'Kelly and how he met O'Kelly. And let me tell you something,
I'm dreading that.
You're all going to be shocked. You're all going to be shocked when you hear the details of
it's going to make
some of this stuff. But, if anybody wants to read ahead to prepare, I left off on page 165.
I need no preparation for this asshole.
Yes, Jazz, you're absolutely right. We do still get some things wrong. And unfortunately, justice isn't perfect. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we are perfect, but when it comes to things like that, we're a lot more perfect than what the fucking USA is.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Well, that would have been in the UK, Alice. That would have been if you touched his leg, that could have been assault.
Yep.
Wow.
To me, that's sexual assault in a way.
I
to be honest with you.
Myself.
If you don't want that, and if you don't want it. If you don't like it, it causes you alarm, harass, or distress,
Yeah.
That's it.
And I believe it really made Brendan uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Man touching you. God.
I want to thank anybody who joined, everybody in chat. We appreciate it so much. And on the 27th, please join us for the more talk on this disgusting thing that happened to Brendan.
Yeah, we're still in the very early stages too. Like it's
going to be an ongoing thing, but I love hearing everybody's voice. Thank you so much, Donna and Alice and Sean and everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see everybody later.
Bye.
Bye.